Joining me now is Rhode Island Democratic Congressman David Cicilline. He is a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, you agree with that sentiment, right?
Absolutely. This is a 2-year investigation which has resulted in 199 criminal charges against 39 individuals and organizations, 7 convictions, and 4 people already going to prison. This was started on behalf of the American people. They have a right to see the conclusions of it. This was an attack on our democracy. It's very important the American people see the results of this investigation.
The rules governing the special counsel make it so that's not your decision. That's the Attorney General's decision. What are you going to do to try and wrestle back some control? What can you do?
Well, we're introducing legislation today that will require the special counsel's report be made public, so we can legislatively pass legislation that will compel the production. We can also bring Mr. Mueller or others before the Judiciary Committee and subpoena the report. That might result in some litigation, but we're prepared to do that. But I think there's real consensus from the Democrats that the American people have a right to see this report, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they do get to see this report, both legislatively, through the court system, through the subpoena process. We have a responsibility to make sure this investigation, which was done on behalf of the American people, is in fact shared with the American people.
Well, what do you believe you can get out of legislation? I mean, is legislation going to overcome the rules surrounding secrecy of grand juries? Is legislation going to be able to overcome executive privilege? And if neither one of those things is possible, what are you going to get out of the report? How much? I mean, a lot of that would mean a lot of redactions.
Well, it will mean some. It'll certainly mean some redactions, but there is certainly important to the Judiciary Committee and to the other committees responsible for oversight to have the results of this investigation. As many people have argued, it may be that the only response to the misconduct that Mr. Mueller has found is going to be an impeachment proceeding. Well, we won't actually know that till we see the report and see the findings that he's made and the interviews he's conducted and the information he's collected. And so, I'm concerned because the Attorney General has some discretion in this area. Obviously, Mr. Barr would not commit to sharing this with Congress or the American people during his confirmation hearings. But this is an important investigation. We have a right to know, as citizens of this country, what happened in the attack by the Russians on our democracy, who was responsible, and to take whatever action we think is appropriate in light of that. But seeing the results of this investigation is really the beginning of Congress's work in this area.
There are millions of people who will agree with you on that point, but if you're arguing this in court, what sort of argument's going to overcome the rules that already surround and have surrounded the appointment of a special counsel?
Well, see, we have oversight responsibilities, we have subpoena power, we have the right to bring and collect evidence to discharge our constitutional duty to do oversight. So I think we have many, many arguments that would compel the production of this. There are claims that may be made with respect to executive privilege. Some of that may be waived. Some of that may not apply if it involves criminal conduct. So it'll have to be litigated if the administration contests this. But Democrats are prepared to do everything we can to fight as hard as we can in the courts, through the legislative process, through the court of public opinion, until the American people get the truth and get to see the results of this investigation.
If you put Robert Mueller before Congress, are you concerned that it would be too political?
No, look, Robert, I think no one's going to make Mr. Mueller political. I think Mr. Mueller has conducted an investigation with extraordinary integrity. He has an impeccable reputation. I think if he comes before Congress, he will behave consistent with that reputation. He will deliver the facts as he found them in a useful way for the committee and for the American people.
Let me play Rod Rosenstein today talking about transparency.
Government collects information doesn't mean that information is accurate, and it can be really misleading if you're overly transparent about information that the government collects. So I think we do need to be really cautious about that.
What do you make of that warning from Rosenstein?
Look, I think we always have to be careful. When we collect information, we have the responsibility, as we're doing our oversight, to assess the credibility and veracity and weight of evidence. We do that every day in our hearings. We would expect to do that when witnesses come before the committee. But that is not an excuse not to share with Congress or the American people what you uncovered in this investigation and the conclusions you made.
How do you convince those who are not on your side, not Democrats, who don't necessarily believe in this investigation, that they should pay attention and that what you are doing and what you are revealing isn't political and is necessary? How do you try and find a way to bring those doubters over to your side?
No, this is an incredible challenge. It's been very disappointing to me so far, the unwillingness of so many of my Republican colleagues to understand that this was an attack on our country, on our democracy. It shouldn't be a Republican or a Democratic issue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's of concern to every single person in this country. And that's why I think overwhelmingly you see in the polling that the American people believe that the results of this investigation should be made public. They understand this investigation was done on their behalf. I think history will judge my Republican colleagues very harshly if they stand in the way of sharing these facts with the American people, but hoping that they'll understand that what's at stake is the integrity of our democracy, the security of our elections, and ensuring that the American people understand that and then see the work of the special counsel for the last 2 years so they can know what the facts are, not only to prevent it from ever happening again, but for holding the individuals accountable who may have engaged in misconduct.
So there are questions about whether the Stone indictment was the last indictment we are going to see out of Robert Mueller's office, the special counsel's office. And in New Hampshire, your House colleague Eric Swalwell said that today that he believes there will be other indictments of people who testified before Congress for lying. What do you know about that? Who are those people?
I don't know whether this will be the last indictment. You know, I don't know that what is happening in the Southern District of New York seems as if it's just the beginning. Has anybody else lied to your committee from your knowledge?
I
don't think we know that. I mean, we have many questions from a number of witnesses that come before our committee, but I think that's one of the reasons.
Does he know more than you do?
Well, he's on the Intelligence Committee. He may have some information I don't have. But, you know, that's one of the reasons the special counsel's report needs to be furnished to the Congress and to the American people so that people who testified falsely, who lied to Congress, can be held accountable. Part of our function in doing oversight is premised on our ability to collect truthful and accurate information, and not having a report furnished to us will impede that responsibility.
I think a lot of folks out there would like to see the entire report in full. Congressman David Cicilline, I'm not going out on a limb with that, I'm sure.
I think you're right.
Thank you very much for joining us.